I'm Stacey Ann Chin, and welcome to another episode of My Two Cents. On today's show, Omali Yeshitela joins us to discuss the relationship between African people living on the continent and those of us here in the diaspora.
I'm Ryan Smith here at Tribal Spears Gallery, getting your 2 cents on the African diaspora. We're here with Davon, Carolyn, and Sakaya, and we're here talking about the African diaspora. You know, people are so hooked on color these days. You guys, tell me what makes somebody a member of the African diaspora.
It's so broad range. Maybe it's not necessarily based on color so much as it's based on ethnicity or where you think you fit in. I mean, you can be Latino and feel like you're part of the African diaspora.
Well, part of the definition of diaspora is the idea of a group of people who were displaced by force from one place and brought somewhere else. And the diaspora includes everybody who's part of that group. So does that include just black folks who were displaced from Africa because of slavery? Or does it include someone who's black living in Amsterdam who might have been displaced there as a result of slavery? What does it include?
I mean, by definition, that's what it is. But I look at it from, okay, what does that produce and what does that mean in long term? So now, are you going to feel, or should you feel a great sense of loss because you're not in the same geographical place that you once knew before that?
But what does it mean? Do I need to give money to Africa? Like, I don't know. Like,
I mean, listen, it's only black folks running around saying that it's the African diaspora.
That's my whole point.
but what are we supposed to do? Because say I'm in the group. I'm part of the the African diaspora. What do I do?
If you're part of the African diaspora, what if you've got a relative 3 times removed who happens to be, whose great-grandfather was black, but they appear to be white, like they're white now for all intent and purposes? Are they part of the African diaspora as well, or are they not because they're white?
It's how they identify. It's how they identify themselves.
So being a part of the group is how you identify yourself as being.
So you can opt in. Is that what you're saying? Like, how do you?
In the sense of like someone being able to pass for white, you would be able to opt in. I mean, just like people did back in the day.
So if I'm a person who is white, I think all my family members are white. I'm still part of the African diaspora.
Saying like, I'm a white kid. I have all black friends. Now I'm part of the group too. Like, no, that can't.
No. I'm not in the sense of a black person who looks white. They could opt in
To the white.
They can opt either way.
They have either way. They can
right.
side of the fence.
But I mean, if you're a white person and you're like, I'm part of the African diaspora, potentially you believe that. I mean, they're like white folks that, they're like, I'm Nigerian, but when I think of Nigerians, I think of Africa, I think of black people first.
So is it a color or is it a culture?
I think it's a belief.
Because Africans always mean black and black doesn't always mean
right,
African.
I think it comes down to belief
So it's a belief. So a white person, a person who's completely white, could be part
they
of the
believe in the
African
struggle.
diaspora.
I get it. They
Right,
believe in the
right,
struggle.
it's
They
right.
understand the fight. They understand the fight.
Right.
But aren't you part of the group that was displaced from Africa and brought here, or are you not?
Inherently, that means that I need to be connected. I was born in Chicago, so that means that I have to have a connection with everybody.
I'm asking you.
You don't have to have a connection with everyone. I think the problem is that people are always looking to put a label. You know what I mean? Like, just be, at the end of the day, just be yourself.
Absolutely.
Someone said before, like, race doesn't matter, and I want you to see me as a person, as a color, but you know what? You are black. You walk down the street, you are black. Are you African American? Are you Latino American? But you are black.
Oh,
like
to that point, right?
That's my thing. Like,
This is the thing, right? People run around and say that they're African American. I happen to be Nigerian Caribbean, so I'm like one of very.
Well, what do you pick?
I just say black.
I like black.
I just say black. But we went from the N-word to Negroes to color to African American to Afro, then African Americans. Like, it's always going to be a title.
I like what you bring up. Are we too hooked on color as a people? Are we too hooked on color or identification with groups?
I think it's identification, not so much as color. Like, I work with mostly white folks, and sometimes they say black and they're like, ooh, and other days they say African American, and it's like, listen, at the end of the day, I know who I am. I don't need you to be politically correct.
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you this one last question. When you are around white folks and they say black and they cringe, do you feel like that's an affront to you? Or do you feel like, hey, you know what? I'm black. I don't need you to call me Cuban American or Nigerian Caribbean.
I'll give you an example. This one guy, I like black and white cookies. The big black and white cookies, one side white, one side black. And he said, oh, today's black and white day. And then he was like, oh, no, I meant black and white cookie day. And I said to him, I said, that's not, I understood what you meant. I'm not calling the NAACP NAACP on you. You know, it's okay. But I think non-black people sometimes are more race conscious than we are because they're trying to not offend you and be politically correct at the same time.
That's a good point. It sounds like a lot of people out there are more hooked on color than even we are in the black community.
I don't even think I can even say I'm African American without even absorbing some type of knowledge of that continent and that struggle. Like I'm placed in this group, but I'm ignoring, the group and ignoring where it came from.
Yeah. It's a multifaceted discussion. We can go on for days about this. But thank you very much. We'll be right back after this break. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to My Two Cents. We are all here to provoke some critical thinking. Let's start with our panelists to get things started. The chairman, Omala Yeshitela, Stacey Ann Chen, and Breon Bain, along with myself, Sean Gables. We all agree to disagree. So let's start with that first of all. And let's bring up a topic that pretty much is a hot one among most African Americans. How we cannot seem to unify. We don't seem to get along. There seems to be adversity between our people and within ourselves, and then those of other color from the African diaspora. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's something we should talk about. What is the connection between African people in the Americas and throughout the diaspora and on the African continent?
And I guess no better person to kick us off is
And the
Chairman Omali.
I do think that's an important question. And I think when we talk about unification, we have to be talking about organizational unity. Because I don't think we can start off with an assumption that somehow African people don't have things in common, that we don't have some kind of inherent unity. But I think that unity does not have the ability at this time to represent itself in the form of organization.
And just to interrupt though, but it seems like when it comes to economic empowerment, that seems to be where the disconnect is. I feel, just in my own personal opinion, my own life, there seems to be, we're more willing to shop at in stores, give patronage to businesses that don't give back to the community, but then you'll have a store that opens up in our community, owned, that may be black owned, African owned, or someone of color, and there doesn't seem to be the support for that business.
But we can't talk about where black people shop without talking about the resources that are available to them to begin with. A woman who only has $10, who is feeding her family with that $10, she's gonna shop where the milk is cheapest. Not where.
I think economically, I think that makes sense, but also